Grace, peace, and welcome to Podcast of the Wills, a podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text. I am Nick Milkey, and we are here on another Sunday, episode 29. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk some Star Wars with somebody who has plenty of Star Wars to talk about. I'm super excited about our guest tonight. A couple of things as we get started here, a couple of housekeeping things. I hope everybody's doing well. I see we've already got some friends in the live chat. I see Andrew, I see Framey, I see Michael, I see Brandon. I know some more folks are going to be joining us tonight. So thank y'all for hanging out on a Sunday night. Thank you for always being here and being a part of the Podcast of the Wills Star Wars family. It always means so much to me that not only y'all come and hang out, but y'all are my friends. And Framey even said it themselves. Neighbor Nick, Framey lives north of me in Alabama. So I'm glad to see y'all tonight. Neighbor is hot and miserable as Alabama still chooses to be. A couple of housekeeping items. I am trying to get my screen share to work here. Friday night, quick story. I went to the Atlanta Braves game over in Atlanta, go figure, and had a great time. It was Star Wars night, and so I was super excited to go to Star Wars night. I'm a huge Braves fan. I'm a huge baseball fan. Baseball is my original sports love. I love all sports. So the chance to go to Atlanta and go to the Braves game was really enticing. And for it to be Star Wars night was even better. So we went, and unlike previous Star Wars nights that I have been to in the past, there were not characters. Normally the 501st shows up. Obviously, COVID is still going on and kind of rising in the South, especially. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. It's also August in Atlanta, Georgia, which means it's hot. And they probably didn't want stormtroopers passing out all over the concourse. So I'm fine with it. I still had a great time. I did want to show y'all because you would appreciate. I did get this really cool giveaway. It was the Atlanta Braves Star Wars. Came with my ticket to get in the game. Little Yoda word cloud hat. What I have learned about myself, though, is I am not aware of the flat bill cap. I don't think I have the head built for it. I might be too old. I don't know. But I tried to wear it in the stadium for a little bit. And I sent a picture to my wife, and she said, if it makes you happy, go for it, which was a clear indicator that that wasn't working. So I am glad for it to hang out in my collection. It looks good sitting in the back of the background behind me, but had a bunch of fun. Shout out to my buddy Matthew for helping me be a part of that fun little adventure. So the other thing I was going to shout out, and I don't know why my screen share is not working, so bear with me, but we have T-shirts. Y'all have talked and seen our T-shirts before, or have seen our T-shirts before. Here we go. Over on TeePublic, all of our T-shirts are on sale for like 6 more hours. So we have the Dad Batch T-shirt. So for those of you that love our favorite Star Wars space family, you can get a Dad Batch T-shirt. We have the Spark of Positivity shirt that I put up last week as we try to be in the Star Wars fandom, the positive parts of our Star Wars fandom. We have the Podcast of the Wills T-shirt. And then, yes, also we have the Heroes of the Mom CU T-shirt. And if anybody is new joining us tonight, Heroes of the Mom CU is the other podcast that I have with my wife and 4 daughters, where we are making my wife watch the Marvel movies in chronological order. And we're recording a podcast about it because she is, as I say, the fish out of water when it comes to Marvel movies. She thought that Mighty Mouse and He-Man were a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's a lot of fun. We watch the movie. We do like a pre-briefing. What does she think is going to happen? We look at the movie poster. We watch the movie. We come back and then get her feedback and her thoughts. And so we are about to start Captain America, the Winter Soldier one night early this week as before school gets back going full swing. So we're at like episode 10. So it's been a lot of fun. And we do have a T-shirt and stickers and some of that stuff. So TeePublic is on sale for just a few more hours, like I said. And the link is, where is it? It's right here. teepublic.com/users/WillsPod. You can find that on our Twitter feed. You can find that in a bunch of other places. So we would love for you to get some Podcast of the Wills merch and represent us out in the world, wherever you are. Tonight, let's get right into it because I have an amazing guest that I'm so honored that he has agreed to come on the show and hang out tonight. I know he has amazing stories. I've heard him on some other podcasts, and I'm just excited that he's here tonight. So my guest tonight is a voice actor. He has been in a million different things. He has a very long IMDb, which I've learned is sometimes suspect, but for the most part, probably pretty accurate. He's done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's done Pokemon. He's done Transformers. I have to say, and we're going to have to get into this for a minute when he comes on, in my house, I discovered this week that he was the voice of some of the characters probably on Word World. And Word World is very popular with my children, and it was a big part of all of their growing up years. We have seen tons and tons of Word World. If you are a Star Wars fan, and if you have come anywhere near a Star Wars audiobook in any part of your life, this man has probably read that book to you, done amazing voices. I forgot to ask the number, but I'm pretty sure it's well north of 50 or more. But I'm so excited to welcome in tonight my guest, Mr. Marc Thompson.
Hey, how are you?
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. You're the first Word World fan I've met.
Hey, I said that earlier this week. I brought that up and everybody lost their mind. Word World was a legit, that was a big celebrity moment in the house when they found out that my podcast guest was some characters on Word World. So yes, that was a big one, but you have done so much, and thank you so much for being here, first of all.
Oh yeah, this is a really cool podcast from what you're telling me about it. I might have to come back and check it out.
Absolutely. Really cool. You are certainly welcome anytime, but it's hard to say I don't know where to start because you have done so many cool things. There's so much that you've done. Let's start here. Tell us a little bit about just kind of Marc Thompson in general. Introduce our audience that might not know you to who Marc is.
Oh, sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm basically a voice actor. I'm an actor. I have been on Broadway, and I did a very low budget independent film called Bringing Up Bobby, which is pretty cool. But most of the work I found is in voice acting. Mm-hmm. I came to New York City to study acting at NYU, and then kind of fell into voice acting. My first big break was on a cartoon called Daria, which was a spinoff of Beavis and Butthead on MTV. So,
yep, I'm the right age for both of those.
Okay, yeah. So, and then I guess from there, one thing kind of led to another, and eventually I got cast on like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, and I've kind of done a lot of animation ever since then. Like you mentioned, G.I. Joe and Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Word World. And then I was really fortunate as a lifelong Star Wars fan. I got to audition for the Star Wars books, and I got cast. And I think the first Star Wars book I did was the Legacy of the Force series. So the first one of the Legacy of the Force books. Mm-hmm. And that ended up being a 9-book series, and it's kind of gone from there. And I think I haven't counted in a while, but I think I'm actually starting to near the 80 or 90 or maybe even 100 mark, if you include all the multicast productions.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
that is absolutely amazing. And we're going to talk in maybe a little bit more about how you got into that and some of the beginnings. But as you said, you've covered a wide range of fandoms, from Transformers, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles. I want to hear your Star Wars origin story, but before we get into Star Wars, which is kind of our primary deal here, I love hearing about other people's other fandoms. I mentioned before you came on the Marvel podcast that we're doing with my family.
Which I love great Marvel. Idea, by the way. That is such a great idea.
It's been a lot of fun. There have been some really funny moments. We watched the Thor: The Dark World the other night, and they have the Frost Giants, and she kept calling them the Frostbites, which made all of us laugh. And so we have had some moments, but we've also reached that point too where 10 movies in, she's really starting to enjoy it and has bought into some of the characters. So like the humorous moments are a little harder to find sometimes because she's really like, I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
She's bought in.
Cool. That's good.
But it's been a lot of fun. But tell us, obviously we're in a similar age range that, I grew up with Indiana Jones and Ghostbusters and He-Man and some of those other things. What are, outside of Star Wars, what are your some favorite fandoms, whether it's just to be a fan of or even to work on?
Sure. So I always feel weird talking about this on Star Wars podcast, but I'm actually a big Trekkie as well. Like I'm a big Star Trek fan. I know for some people that's like, it's one or the other, like pick a side, man. But like, I
you're
like
totally safe here with that.
Right,
I grew up, my dad was a huge Star Trek fan. And so I grew up with original series, Next Generation, the movies. And actually I just watched one night last week the first JJ reboot. I really like those movies.
I do
they're
too.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I love that. Especially that first one was so great.
It was really
perfect
good
balance of like nostalgia but new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So yeah, I was and am a big Star Trek fan. Have not gotten to work on any Star Trek projects to date, and that's something I would really, really love to do at some point if I'm given the opportunity. Grew up a big G.I. Joe fan, like just watching that cartoon daily. The Transformers, definitely was a big fan of that. Indiana Jones, like you said, I went for one Halloween as a Ghostbuster, and my dad built me a proton pack out of like an old water heater part, and we had like Christmas lights in there, and so it was really cool. So yeah, I'm sure like a lot of the same. I made an Indiana Jones movie with my brother in our basement, and we were walking around the basement as if it was the temple floor, and we rolled a soccer ball and pretended it was like the giant boulder, and we were running down the hallway from the soccer ball. Yeah, so all that stuff, and then of course Star Wars, big time. That's right.
Well, tell us a little bit then about your Star Wars origins. When you saw it for the first time, maybe the impacts and the stuff, because obviously we were talking before we came on about the wishes that we had all of our original toys.
Oh yeah,
and some of that. So I'm sure you have a bunch of that kind of stuff. But tell us a little bit about your introduction to Star Wars.
Yeah, so I was born in '75, so I was too young to go to the theater in '77 or remember it.
Right.
So the first, it's one of those things where I always feel like it feels like it's just always been there because of when I grew up. So
yes,
the toys were always a part of my life. When it was on television, I felt it was one of those things where you always were watching it on TV. And but the first kind of crystallized memory I have is being in the theater for Empire,
right?
And just being totally enraptured by it and just totally sucked in. And there's the moment when Luke crash lands the X-wing on Dagobah, and R2 falls into the swamp, and Luke cries out, R2, where are you? And I, was so wrapped up in the moment, I screamed out in the theater, he's in the water, and everyone's like, oh, but I remember help him get, so that's like my first actual memory. But then it's it was just, everything became a lightsaber, all the action figures, and then when I was old, the re-releases came out when I was in college, and just I remember dressing up and going with friends to the re-releases, and just what a big event that was. And then when the prequels came out, it was even more crazy and more nuts. And I was there at, I guess it was episode 1 when Conan O'Brien was doing the Triumph the Insult Dawn. I was at the Ziegfeld when they were filming that, and I was kind of peeking in the background, and so it's always been there, and it's just it's a huge part of my life,
So if we pull up the Triumph video because of the glory of YouTube, can we find you in the background?
No, I've looked. I don't think I'm there, but I distinctly remember the fillet of fish wizard and the but it was I slept out all night to guarantee seats for that, and actually my son, when episode 3 came out, my wife was pregnant with our second child, and his due date was basically, the day that episode 3 was going to come out.
Right.
And I had already counted the cost, and I was like, of course I'm going to be there for the birth of my child. But but he happened to be born at maybe 1 or 2 in the morning or something.
Right.
And so I was like, so honey, do you need me? Is there anything else I can do?
Is everything cool? Right
Yeah. And she's like, you can go to the movie. So I was like, okay. So I went to episode 3, and I was like, I just became a father. And everyone was like, yeah.
That's awesome. Nothing better than a good audience cheering for that. Well, I have a similar, but not quite the same story. When our middle child was born, I have twins, so it seems weird to call her the middle because there were already 2. But I have another one after her, so she is the middle child. When she was born was the day that Dark Knight came out.
Oh, wow.
And we checked into the hospital early that Friday morning, and there was the midnight premiere. Well, that was when there was the shooting at the theater in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
At the premiere of The Dark Knight.
Oh, wow.
Well, of course, we're in Montgomery, Alabama. And so, we're not anywhere near that. But like we were standing in the ER checking in for a scheduled C-section. You check in through the ER and all that stuff. And all the TVs were about this mass movie theater shooting for Batman: The Dark Knight in Colorado.
Wow.
Well, I had already had this plan. My parents had my twins and they were taking them to my nephew's birthday party. My wife was going to have this baby early and quick and soon, and her mom and sister were coming. And so I had already had plans to go see the Saturday morning showing of The Dark Knight, right when my child, and she was fine with it until we saw and she's like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "It's going to be." So I went.
Yeah.
But it was still just that same, like, yeah, my wife had a baby 3 hours ago and I'm by myself watching Batman. And that story happened to come up just earlier this week with the kids at some point. And they're like, "Really? You went?" I was like, "Yeah, she had her mom and her sister. It was fine."
I've gotten a lot of flack over the years because of that, but I still feel like, what was I supposed to do? Like, they're both going to be sleeping. I'm going to.
That's right. But everybody was cool. That was the time to go.
I wouldn't have done it if it was anything serious.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's the love of the property, and whether it's Star Wars or Batman or whatever it is, being a part of those moments. And of course, the world has changed so much now, even in this age that we're in, with getting back now sort of to movie theaters, but then stuff is still on the rise. And now we have all these at-home premieres, and it's a whole different era and level. But there was something, especially when we were high school and college kids, to a midnight premiere. You live somewhere where camping out made sense. As somebody who went to college in Montgomery, Alabama, and a lot of our listeners have already heard this story, but I think you would really appreciate it. The premiere for The Phantom Menace, 99, some friends and I, we got together and we're like, we're going to go see the midnight showing on that Thursday. Well, it's like 10:15. We're at a buddy's house just kind of killing time until it's closer to midnight to go to the theater because there's not going to be crowds here. Well, the 10 o'clock news was on and there was a reporter outside the local movie theater. And there was this huge crowd behind her. And she was talking about Star Wars is back. And there's excitement at the Rave movie theater and all this kind of stuff. And so we kind of panicked. We're like, holy crap, there's a line. Like, we've got to get over there. So we rushed over to the movie theater to get in line, worried about seats. The newscaster staged a line for her stand-up set for the 10 o'clock news.
Gosh.
We got there and there was nobody there. And they like literally got a shot where it was just people who looked like they were in line for something. So we killed like another hour and then got in. But that was always my Phantom Menace story, was the fake line that caused everybody to panic for the news.
Line. Yeah.
The actual fake news, if you will. But so you definitely, and that I say the same thing too. I feel like Star Wars has always been in my life. It came out in 77. My first experience was seeing Return of the Jedi at a drive-in theater in the back of my parents' station wagon in Central Illinois.
That's cool.
And so it's just always been there. And I was in college when the prequels came out. And so I feel like we have those similar journeys, as we come into this fandom, where our courses tend to part way a little bit. Is you get to work for Star Wars as a voice actor. You get to do, you've read, like you said, you're getting closer to like 80 or 90, audiobooks at this point. Tell us a little bit about, getting into that work. I know you mentioned working for Daria and doing some of those other things, but tell us about getting into the audiobooks and kind of what that process was. Cause obviously it was a dream come true.
Yeah. So basically what happened was, I predominantly just done animation or commercials and things like that. And one day my agent called and said, well, have you ever done audiobooks? And I was like, no. And, at first I was kind of maybe trying to talk myself or talk her out of it, because in high school, I was kind of the kid who got the Cliff Notes version or rented the movie version of the book and did the book report on the Cliff Notes of the movie, because I just was not someone that enjoyed reading. Or wasn't a big reader. And the idea of like having to read an entire book now was like, why would I do that if I don't have to? So I was trying to kind of play it off like I wasn't, no, I haven't really done an audiobook. And she's like, well, what about like a Star Wars audiobook? And I was like, whoa, hold on. Yeah, yes. And then,
let's back up here.
Yeah. So they gave me the sides, and I'd never done an audiobook before. So they give me the script, and I'm looking it over, and I just like really worked on it. Like usually auditions, you read it 2 or 3 times and then you go and do it your thing. Sure. But this time I got it a few days in advance, and I was like studying this thing. I was like, practicing the voices and listening to the films and trying to get as close as I could. I was praying about, I was like, God, please let me get this, So I go in and I do a decent enough job where that they like it. And I got cast. And I always tell people, like, I think I got cast because just growing up, I always used to have an ear that would mimic things, and I would kind of mimic voices and parrot stuff. And so I think I got cast because I could do a reasonably good enough approximation of the voices from the movies and the films.
Right.
But I really had to learn on the job how to narrate an audiobook, because that's like a separate skill. And like at first, like Kevin Thompson, who's basically the main director and producer of a lot of the audiobooks, like, he's been doing it for probably close to 20 years now, but like he's just like amazing at what he does. But he had to like really help me learn to like make the narration and the prose interesting and engaging, because I would do okay when it came to the dialogue, but when it came to just the straight narration, I was kind of glossing over it just to get to the next scene. But he really coached me through and basically taught me how to do this. And I'm very, very grateful to him because of that, because now it's just been this huge thing. And now it's like audiobooks, the Star Wars audiobooks are probably my favorite thing on my resume now. Like it's the thing I love doing even more than the animation in some ways. It's really been a huge blessing.
Well, and I'd love to hear, it's so neat. And I have always enjoyed reading, and like, especially again, to grow up in the time that we grow up in, like that original Thrawn trilogy, the Heir of the Empire books, like I read those in high school religiously, and the Jedi Academy trilogy with Kip Duran, and some of those, other books, John Jackson Miller, Timothy Zahn, like all the ones that wrote before Disney and before the new kind of canon Legends deal. I read tons of those. And as I have become an adult, as I have work and responsibilities and all these different things, I'd still like to I'm woefully behind on Star Wars books. Like, I have general ideas of what's going on in the High Republic, but I haven't touched any of them. But the audiobooks have been like, the only competition for my audiobooks is the amount of podcasts that I listen to, Star Wars and otherwise. And so audiobooks, and I have heard this from a lot of folks, and especially, as you have younger Star Wars fans, you have people who struggle with ADHD, the ability to focus and read a book. The audiobooks have really blown up and opened up this great other way for folks to get engaged with the rest of the Star Wars stories outside of just the movies. And it's neat to hear about the process of, the voices versus, like you said, the narration and the points that you need to know. Tell us a little bit about your process for the voices, because obviously that's something that fascinates me to no end. You talked a little bit about having an ear for being a mimic. And it's not really impressions as much as it is, doing an approximation of, your version of that voice, because nobody expects you to be Harrison Ford. Nobody expects you, to be able to pull off a Ben Burt level, although all of your voices are really good. You have to kind of own it in your own way. Tell us about that process, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Basically, if there's, I'll get the script and I read through it. And then anytime there's a line of dialogue, anytime there's a character that speaks, I'll jot that down on some notes. And then once I've figured out all the speaking parts, I go back and I cast it, meaning I figure out like what are the voices I'm going to use for each of these characters. And so if it's a legacy character, meaning if it's a character who's appeared in one of the films or the TV shows or a video game or one of the cartoons, I try to find a sample of that. So YouTube has kind of saved my life, because I go there, and
no doubt
Disney Plus is now a necessary investment for me, because I can go back and refer to all that. So I'll get samples of that and then try to kind of find my hook, like, what, are they using a certain accent or a certain rhythm or and I try to kind of imitate that. And then for everybody else, I'm really looking very closely at like how the author describes this character. Like, so if they give me any hints about, like sometimes it'll say, they bellowed, or with Han hears a gruff voice from behind him, or, so there's certainly certain descriptors that I can like latch onto. Other times it'll be a specific alien species. So I'll go to Wikipedia and look up that species, and and I'll look at the how, if they appeared in the comics or what drawings there are, and maybe something about that drawing inspires how I might do that voice. Or maybe it's just an attitude of the character, like, like maybe they're naturally shy or they're naturally brash or bold or whatever it is. So I take all those factors and then I try to I record samples of what I think might work for that voice. And then when it comes time to record, we get in the booth and, I'll start off, and then if I need a refresher, I'll listen to the samples that I recorded just to get it back in my ear, and then kind of record the lines. And then the editors have to deal with all my starts and stops and pauses and stuff. And
that's right. That part's not your problem, is it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, Paul. Yeah,
that's right. I'm just here to give you as much to work with as I can. So
exactly.
Let me do it several times. Well, and I've heard so many of your voices, and in a minute I'm going to see if you'll do a couple of your favorites for us. But another thing that fascinates me, I've always been fascinated by impressionists. I've always been fascinated. I grew up watching, Johnny Carson reruns or Letterman, and you'd have somebody come on, and sometimes you had a comedian or somebody who that was their deal, but then you'd have other times you'd have celebrities come on, and to watch a celebrity who's a person in their own right, then be like, oh yeah, I do. Michael Caine, or I do Christopher Walken. Like that cracks me up as well.
Yeah.
And something that I've always, and I wish I could do impressions. I can't. But I've being fascinated with, there's a video I watched one time, and I think it was on The Daily Show back when Jon Stewart was the host. Michael Caine was on. And Michael Caine was talking about, he was there doing promo for Secondhand Lions.
Okay.
The movie that came out, I think, in the early 2000s, and he was supposed to be an old guy living in Texas. So, of course, very British Michael Caine, who we all love, Jon Stewart was asking about, you did a Texas accent, and it sounded really good, this Southern accent. And the way he described it was, he said, my British accent, he said, you imagine a bunch of soldiers all lined up in a row, prim and proper and whatever. He said, that's my British accent. He said, now imagine if somebody tipped the first one of those soldiers like a domino and they started to collapse. And as he was saying that, he transitioned into that lilting Southern.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the most brilliant. I was just like, holy, like,
I'm going to look that up. That's cool.
Thinking about how to get to, which now for us would be like, Southern voiced Eli Vanto, or
wow, yeah.
Somebody, Captain Pelion, or somebody else who, has that deep Star Wars Southern voice. I love, we say Space Boston for Bill Burr in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But that always stuck with me as far as like the process of like figuring out how to do some of those voices. Yeah. And I just thought that was such a neat way to kind of illustrate what that was like.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
So for you, if I can put you on a spot for a moment, what are a couple of your favorites, and would you give us a couple of lines and some of your favorite voices?
Oh, sure. Well, probably my all-time is do or do not. There is no try.
Absolutely. And then, can't go wrong with a Yoda.
Yeah. And then, oh dear, Master Solo, I do hope you won't mind me interrupting. R2, what are we doing here? We're doomed. C-Feel's fun. Chewie, punch it.
See, I just, and again, I've heard you do this on other shows, and I hope some of our listeners are enjoying it as much as I am. I do have to ask though, like, especially when you're doing 3PO, the gestures just come with it. When you're in the booth and you're doing the book, are those gestures there?
Absolutely. Like, and that's like, when you're talking about Michael Caine's thing, like that, my body posture is one of the tricks I use to try to help me get into things. So oftentimes when I'm doing Yoda, I'm hunched over, and when I'm doing 3PO, I'm upright and I stiffen out my arms, and it just, for some weird reason, it helps me channel it a little bit better.
Absolutely. Well, and I think about too, we got all that great behind the scenes stuff with Mandalorian. And of course, a lot of what Pedro Pascal did, being an actor in a mask, or as we learned, like 2/3 of the time he wasn't in there.
Yeah.
But they did a lot of VO for that. And so we got the shot of him recording, and he was holding the pillow like he was holding Baby Yoda to kind of give himself that, physical and whatever. So again, I think that's so neat. Let me ask you this. What is the most difficult voice for you to do? What challenges you the most?
I mean, there have been some aliens that we've done that can be hard to do for extended periods of time. So, like, I think the one that's coming to mind right now is in the last Thrawn book, there was a character I believe called the Magus, and if I can remember, she was like, "We are not alone. I must be allowed to drift into non-existence." And it's this like very high, scratchy thing. So like doing that for, if she had a long scene, that could be challenging after a while.
That's right. Get that good vocal fry going on.
Yeah,
and start to feel it a little bit. Well, one other thing that I'm fascinated about, and I've heard you talk about this a little bit more, or I've heard you talk about this on other shows. You also do, obviously you do female voices. You do Leia. You're not a female, and so there has to be a little bit of a challenge or degree of difficulty in that, because you want to do it in a way that serves the character and fits with the story, but not feeling like you're just going, "Oh, hi, I'm a girl," and making it into a caricature. Talk about that process for a second, if you don't mind.
It's definitely a unique challenge, and it's definitely in a weird way, like what I try to do is I had this great book that I read a while ago called Talking Funny for Money, and I can't remember the author's name, but she basically talked about how you have different resonators, and you talked about like your chest and your throat, and then your nasal resonator, and then she talked about your head voice, and like, so a lot of times when I'm doing Leia or other female characters, I'll just try to kind of place it in my head resonator, and just give it ever so slightly a lighter touch, or a little more breath in my voice perhaps, and like, Han, what are we doing, and just so, and it's oddly that can be challenging vocally for a long time, just because it's not where I'm used to having my voice placed, but that's kind of my workaround for the to try to kind of make them sound distinct and whatever. So sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes it's like, nope, that's just a dude, and I don't buy it, but I do the best I can.
and I think especially for as far as Carrie Fisher and Leia is concerned, Carrie Fisher's not one of those high voiced. No. I mean, she sounds like a woman. Yeah. But she sounds like a woman that, like you said, you could do, and and for who the character is and for who Leia is, she's not the damsel in distress.
No.
She's a badass general who has control, takes charge. And so that has to lend something to it too, is you're not the victim tied to the railroad tracks. Right. You're assertive and, doing someone who knows who she is. And so that, I would think, helps drive some of that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That is super fantastic. I really love that. And I love hearing those voices. Droids are fun. Obviously you don't, to be able to do a 3PO, that's such unique character built into it. The quirks of it, and your 3PO is fantastic. It's, it's as good as any of the other non-Anthony Daniels 3POs that you can get anywhere. But as we kind of transition, one of the things I also would love for you to talk about, I've heard you mention this before, and it's going to lead us into our top 7 list. You do some Saber Guild stuff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us about Marc and the Saber Guild.
Oh, yeah. Like I somewhat recently, I guess maybe like a year or two ago, I finally just got up enough courage to apply for the Rebel Legion and Saber Guild. And I met Christine Evans, who's one of the captains in New York, was able to help me get I had an Obi-Wan thing that I would cosplay in for fun. and she helped me get it to be a generic Jedi, and I joined Saber Guild. And so sometimes I'll go out, and lately we've been meeting in Washington Square Park, and we'll do saber practice in the middle of Washington Square Park. And people are like, "What's going on over there?" But you do stunt saber work and put on little saber shows, and we'll go to like comic book conventions or public libraries, or we used to, before COVID, go to like children's hospitals and just do little a little show, and sometimes do like a Padawan training thing where the kids get fake lightsabers, and we kind of teach them a basic routine and try to raise some money for charity, and awesome. Have fun dressing up. And I love it. It's a lot of fun.
That's so fun. And that, like I said, that is going to lead us into our top 7 list. I do have to jump back for one quick second, if you'll allow me.
Oh yeah.
As I have mentioned, I am woefully behind on the High Republic. but a lot of our viewers and friends hanging out in the chat are not. And there has been a lot of calls for a little bit of Marcion Rowe.
Oh,
yeah. And I know there's also some questions about whether that's the right way to say it or not. But I feel
Yes.
I feel like that's how I was told I'm supposed to say it. So
Yes.
however you say it, we need a little bit of Marc and a little bit of Marcion or Marcion Rowe. However it works.
Okay. Let's see. You think that I'm not in control, but what you do not realize is that I am your eye. I am the eye of the storm, and you will follow me or die.
Amazing. All right, so as I said,
Yes,
we're getting comments galore. Framey said that is chilling. So let me ask this question, since we're here for just a second.
Sure.
This is a character that we don't know anything about. This is a character that we've never seen before. There's no animated version. There's no other real version. So you get to kind of chart the course on, at least for where we are right now, what this character sounds like. Yeah. Michael said earlier up in the chat, he gets a John Malkovich vibe out of your Marcion Rowe. Is he on it? Was there inspiration there?
That's awesome that he picked up on that. Yeah. Yes, that was basically one of the sources I was trying to channel. Yes.
Do you get any guidance when you get to come up with like a new character? Do they kind of say, what are you thinking? Do they say this guy's, super grumbly, this guy is fast paced? Like, where are the notes in a new character that we don't know?
So I guess everybody's different, but for me, I'm usually getting the script a few weeks before we have to record, which might sound like a lot of time, but it's not. Like I've got to read the whole book, cast a lot of times there's 60, 70, 80, 90, sometimes different characters in a book. I've got to figure all that out and then be ready to record. So there's not a lot of time for going back and forth on things like that. So most of the time I'm just seeing what the author has written and then letting that be my primary source of inspiration. And then I come up with the ideas, and then Kevin, who's the director producer, basically says yay or nay. So about 80 to 90% of the time, he's fine with whatever I choose. Right. And then, 10 to 20%, it's like, actually, why don't we try this instead? Or I'm not sure that voice is going to work for this character. And so there have been some times where we've had to go back and we'll record half a chapter or a chapter. And then he'll say, you know what, I'm not sure that's going to work. So let's go back and change it to this. And gotcha. But most of the time we're basically we've worked together for about 10 years and we're basically on the same wavelength now. And a lot of our instincts are kind of lined up now. So I know we say Marcion, they initially Lucasfilm gave us they always give us a pronunciation list for every book. Right. So on the list they gave us, it was Marcion and it was Nihil. I know that the authors all say Marcion and Nihil. Right. So but I've reached out to Charles at least and he kind of said, don't worry about it. Because I was oh no, are we saying it wrong? Like everybody's asking me, what do I do? And Charles was like, it's the new Han, or Leia Leia, so don't worry about it. I was like, okay, all right. So
wait, so you mean to tell me there's controversy in Star Wars, Marc?
Yeah,
what is going on here?
That's
fantastic.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen now, but I feel like it's kind of been established in the Del Rey audiobooks, at least. The Disney audiobooks, the new one says Marcion, and so who knows what's going to happen. I'll say whatever they tell me to say. I'm a meat puppet in a booth. I'll do whatever you want me to do. So
you do what I get to work for Star Wars.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And you have to think that was like all of us Americans when the first Harry Potter came out, and every one of us read it as Hermione Granger.
Yeah.
And then one day when the movie came out, it was like Hermione. Hermione. We were all like Hermione and Hermione and
right.
So that's outstanding. I love that, and I love hearing about those processes. I think that's so neat to figure out, where that works and what the role. And again, you have such a long established relationship with the folks that you're working most directly with. they trust, okay, Marc's going to do this. And if there needs to be a tweak, you tweak it. But otherwise, like, you have to keep it moving too, because we're in a golden age of Star Wars, and there's lots more books coming and lots more things, which is good news for Marc Thompson, I would imagine.
But I hope so. And there's a lot of other great narrators as well, but I'm super grateful anytime we get to do it. Just a quick plug for High Republic, though. I know you haven't checked it out, but like I know I'm biased, and you would expect me to say this, but it's some of the best Star Wars storytelling I've been a part of. Like I'm really loving the High Republic, and Kevin and Charles and Claudia and Justina and Daniel are all doing just amazing work. And Marcion is like a really complex, cool character. And it was fun finding a voice for him, because he starts off as kind of this maybe underestimated or kind of, not who you would expect to be the big bad, and then kind of works his way up to it. And it's worth checking out when you
absolutely well. And I will say, and I'm going to echo Fanboy Cantina right here, I've got to check out High Republic.
Yeah,
it really is. Like, I'm not one to be skeptical about Star Wars. Star Wars is supposed to be fun. I don't go in for the negativity. In fact, that's why we have a shirt in our store that's #Spark of Positivity. Let's have fun. If it makes us mad, let's go away. But I will say, despite not having time for reading, like I've read a couple over the years. I read the what's the Kanan and Hera book? New Dawn. Yeah, that's a great book. Of course, I love Bloodline. Like I've read, and I love a good real book when I can do it. But what happens is I get in bed at night, and the path of least resistance is to watch a show on my iPad with an earbud in, and pass out and not turn a light on and disturb my wife or whatever. But I will say, with the amount of hype that has been around High Republic, the people that I know that I trust their opinions that have raved about it, like it is very much on my to-do list.
Yeah, it's
and I keep thinking that I've cheated the system a little bit, because every now and then Kindle will put one of the books up for like 99 cents. And every time I see one of these 99-cent Kindle book sale, I'll snap it up. The problem is none of them are the first ones. So I still need to go back and get in line and do it in the right order. So it is something I want to get to. Hopefully this fall is kind of a goal I've set, is to get, into the books and caught up. And of course, now I need to do the audiobook so I can hang out with my friend Marc Thompson. But we talked about lightsabers. I kind of got us out of order because I forgot to, give Marcion the shrift that he deserved.
All right.
But we're going to get to our top 7 list. And you obviously are somebody who loves lightsabers.
Yeah.
And so Marc's top 7 list tonight, if y'all didn't catch it on Twitter, is his top 7 lightsaber battles in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And this is a phenomenal list. And I'll give you credit. Every time we do this, I always do top 7. For some reason, that's the number I picked the first time, and we've just stuck with it. There's no real reason. But I have had multiple guests, whatever their topic is, say, I really just need to do 10. And I like holding their feet to the fire and making them kind of have to make choices. And to your credit, you did not respond to me and say, this is really hard, I can't come up with only 7. I'm sure there's other ones out there. And I picked a couple of bonus selections that we'll get to at the end that weren't on your list.
Yeah.
But we're going to jump in with your number 7, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. And I just want you to tell us about, what you love, why you picked it, that kind of thing. We have Rey and Ben versus the Knights of Ren, as well as Palpatine.
You got the
big finale for Rise of Skywalker. And there is a lot on the screen. In fact, I need to get the frame out of the way here so that we can see every take it all in its glory. But tell us about this as your selection.
Well, you got my favorite, all the moments on there. Well, it's so great. Like, first of all, for the record, it was hard, and I did want to put more on the list, but I tried to be disciplined. What I love about this is I love that the Kylo comes around, and that he comes back into the light, so that's exciting. And then just the moment where Rey reaches behind her back and then passes the lightsaber to him. So that was like such a great, because especially since they established it through the movie about how they're able to pass physical objects and through the Force was so cool, and to see it used in this way was awesome. And then just it's just the shrug, the moment you're showing here on the GIF with the flip and then coming around. It was just such because I love it when the characters are put in this predicament. You're like, well, how are they going to get out of that? And then they come up with this way of doing it that I wasn't expecting, because it really did feel like there's no way out of this. What are they going to do? And then just this very simple thing was like, oh, you know. So it's just, that was a very fun moment for me.
Oh, it's so good. And for me, you know, I am very positive about the sequel trilogy. Sure, there are things I wish that were different, as we all do, but it's not going to make me angry. I'm not going to burn a couch or light anything on fire because it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But there are so many little notes, especially through this whole sequence. Like you said, you mentioned briefly the shrug. That's such a Han Solo. This is Han Solo's kid move. Like and when before he gets the saber, when he first gets there and he's running in, he shoots the guy without looking at him.
Yeah.
It's the most Han Solo thing that can happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course I love that, you know, we get Rey, you know, continuing to be this fully developed, realized Jedi, and she's had to learn it. She learned it from Leia. She learned it from the books that she got from Luke. But like, she's awesome. And, you know, to see, and again, I love also how this mirrors, and not to spoil one of your choices, but it's an easy choice. Yeah. This also has a lot of mirroring to the Snoke room scene that we get in Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, there's no way this isn't a worthy choice.
Oh yeah. And just even Rey, like crushing the one guy and then deflecting the laser bolt with the Force is cool too, because it's fun to see the combination of Force and lightsaber skills all at the same time. So
it absolutely is. And like Framey just said in the comment that I put up on the screen, Rey has so much going on in this sequence. They both do. Yeah. There's so much blink and you miss it moments, like pushing a blaster bolt back, pushing a person back.
Right.
You know, Ben jumps over this guy and stabs him from behind.
It's brilliant. I love it.
It's
and the symmetry, they're both surrounded and outnumbered. Yeah, it's just, there's so many great.
The mirroring of it both with two different locations.
Yeah, and the ending of like they come in unison. I love that. The dyad.
Yeah, it's so good. And again, the reveal when she reaches behind her head and she pulls back that empty hand and he pulls it back and he's like, what are you going to do? And then let's just, let's get to it, shall we? It's just the swagger of Han Solo lived in Ben in those moments. And I was totally there for it.
Yeah,
an amazing entry to your top 7 list. So let's keep going. Let's go to number 6. Okay. Your number 6 is Ahsoka and Vader in Rebels. And I have big feelings about Rebels, but this is your moment. This is your list. Tell us about your choosing this one.
Okay, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Rebels. I really liked Rebels. And this moment in particular, because there's so much that built up to this moment of seeing like as soon as you see Ahsoka show up as Fulcrum, you're like, does she know? Does she not know? Does she know that Anakin has turned, or like, what does she think about all this? So there was so much anticipation for this moment, and not, I wasn't even sure if this moment would actually happen. And then when it does, and the helmet cracks open, and then it's just, there's so much drama, and the stakes are so high at that moment because the temple's about to collapse on them, and she's trying to save Ezra and Kanan, and then the ambiguous way it ended, where you're like, wait, what just happened? Is she dead? Is she not? Like, where's she walking? What's that owl? Like, what's that? Like, it was just there was so many, like, it was just such an epic, huge moment. And for all the, because of the history, but also just the intensity of the battle itself, and the tragedy of it all, to see him, her fighting her old master, and just I just really love that moment. I think this might have been the moment I really fell in love with. I was always liking Rebels, but this was probably the moment where I was like, oh, this show's amazing. Like, this is,
and you said it kind of as you were leading up to that, but from the time Ahsoka showed up in Rebels, to me, the stride, it hit the stride. And I've told this story too many times, but Clone Wars was not originally my jam. I watched it a little bit. It was kind of annoying, the whole Snips and Sky Guy thing. It just wasn't for me.
Okay.
But for whatever point I was at in my life, I was a grown up. I had a job. I had kids when Rebels came out. But at some point when I caught it, the beginning parts of Rebels season 1 is a little bit slapsticky, a little bit younger than whatever,
right?
But very quickly it hit a stride, and it is such a good Jedi story with Kanan knowing the tragedy he's been through, Ezra, the whole deal. And so by the time Ahsoka shows up, of course I'm fully in the tank, and we go the way it develops. And so even the symmetry, and of course George Lucas himself is the one that said it's like poetry, it rhymes. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
George's thing.
Yeah.
He, you know, you said, there's a shot, and I almost picked this as one of the gifts that I put up here, where Ahsoka pushes Ezra back as the door is trying to close, and he wants to come help.
Oh,
he pushes her back to stay here with Vader, which is what Kanan does with Hera right at the end of Rebels, and that big sacrifice and that big moment. But the other thing I love so much about this is we get to Ahsoka is one of the only people that gives Vader what he can handle.
Oh yeah,
like Kanan and Ezra fight him in those other episodes before this, and he's kind of just walking through them and pushing them aside. But like, she's strong in the Force for everything she walked away from, the training, the whatever. Like, this is a match where and I think he realizes that as he slides back right here and looks up. Yeah, there's that moment of like, oh crap, like I got to work at this a little more. Yeah. And eventually the helmet gets cracked and you see the eye, and it's very powerful in a series that I do believe is, as you said, talking about High Republic, for me, Rebels is some of the best Star Wars storytelling we've gotten, certainly in the Disney era.
I agree. And I mean, I still love Clone Wars, but I actually like Rebels better than Clone Wars. Like I really, it's so cool to hear you say that.
It's very, very good. And again, I could write a dissertation just about Rebels, but we have 5 more choices to go, so we're going to keep going. So your number 5 is the aforementioned Kylo and Rey versus Snoke's Guard. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to like this, but tell us about it for your pick.
I guess similar to number 7 for me, where it was another moment where it was like, how are they going to get out of this? Like, there's just no way. And I couldn't see in the moment. It was a total surprise to me. Like, I couldn't see what they were going to do. And when he, when Kylo, makes the saber turn and cut through Snoke, I was like, what? Like, it just caught me so off guard. And then there's just such great lightsaber action in this. And I love them going back to back. I love Kylo, just like the move where he like turns the lightsaber on and off with the guard behind him. Like, I love Rey holding the cross guards. Like, there's just there's some great lightsaber action in here, but mainly just seeing them work together in this moment where their goals are aligned for this brief moment was super exciting. And just and also the I feel like the imagery is iconic. Like I don't know a story reason why the red curtain is there and it's all red, but it looks gorgeous. Like it just like fantastic. It's like so I really love this moment.
And the visuals are so much of a part of, obviously the visuals have always been a big part of Star Wars. Yeah. If you do one of these, one of my favorite, I guess it's not a trope, but maybe I'll call it a trope. One of my favorite tropes is the Mount Rushmore. What is your Mount Rushmore of Star Wars imagery, rock band, song? Like, you have to pick 4 if you're going to carve these 4 in stone. And so, like, for me with Star Wars, if you say Star Wars and say visually, what do you see? The first 2 things that come up in my head is the binary sunset on Tatooine with Luke standing on the edge of that little canyon or cliff.
Nice. Yeah.
And the second one right behind that is Empire with Luke and Vader shadowed crossing sabers, and you just get the light of the sabers and the 2 of them. Yeah. And then there's like 27 other choices to make up the other 2 behind that. But this could easily be one of them, to your point. Yeah. It's so visual. The muted, I mean, Kylo's in black, Rey's in kind of this darkish gray. Right. And then you've got 2 lightsabers and tons of red. Like, it creates a very visually pleasing. And of course, the neat moments in this one, like the Rise of Skywalker pick that you did, is all the little stuff. The saber through the helmet, the drop and catch, reactivate. Yeah. The guy, apparently these big circles on the floor are giant floor fans, because at one point one of them goes in it and it's just like red chips fly out of it like a wood chipper. And then of course you do get the reveal, the curtains catch on fire and there's a big window behind it. And they're looking out at, the fleet and all that stuff. But and of course, as Michael says, the fashion of Snoke, the gold robe, rings.
And the breaking of the Skywalker saber, like that's
the saber, that like other big part, that big breaking moment of, again, the visual separation between, as they're back to back right here in this clip, you kind of almost envision that when that saber breaks apart and you've got the 2 halves, and
Yeah.
you know, eventually it gets healed, as it also does in Rise of Skywalker. It just, there's so much great imagery.
Yeah.
And that's why we love, that's one of the many reasons why we love these movies and these stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an amazing pick, and obviously one that's worthy of the list. Fanboy Cantina says the big fans seem like that might be an OSHA violation. I completely agree that nobody's letting you walk around near a floor level wood chipper.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? So as we move to number 4, let's keep this going. Your number 4 is Luke versus Vader in Empire Strikes Back. And again, I could write a whole book about this one, but this is your list, and I want to hear where this one hits you.
I think so. There is something about that, the silhouetted image of them standing on the carbon freeze chamber and their 2 sabers ignited that just is iconic, and like,
absolutely.
And maybe it's just because Empire is my favorite movie, and you know, like the emotional weight behind this battle is so powerful. Like, just the idea that he is going to confront him, and that this is the battle in which he learns that Vader is his father. The you know, seeing Luke after his training on Dagobah being able to put some of the skills in practice for the first time, and flipping out of the carbon chamber, and kind of being able to give him a little bit, but then ultimately, you know, like, what a shock it is to see him lose. Like, what what an emotional, and especially for a kid, to see the hero get his hand cut off and defeated, like it's just, there's so much like weight to this battle, and yeah, like and just what this battle sets up, but just there's definitely like just I can't think of this battle without thinking of the twist of no, I am your father. You know, it's like,
that's what? Right.
You know, so there's some, so I guess maybe it's because I connected to that moment, but it just there's so much emotional weight to this battle that's so cool to me.
Without
a doubt. And it's also, real quick, it's just to go from the episode 4 between Obi-Wan and the Death Star was cool, but it's very tame. And this is this to see this one next was definitely like, oh wow, they're doing flips and like, you know, like there's a lot more quickness, and so it was like a, like not the old lightsaber battles. Like, oh, this is amazing.
That's right. And the weight of it, like you said, the emotional weight, we get obviously the big reveal in it, but there's also that element playing through this, which is Yoda told Luke, "Don't go, you're not ready."
Yep.
And if that's exemplified, this scene, this little clip that we've got on the screen has a lot, like Vader's one-handing this. Like, he's just, okay. He's a little bit playing with him. You know, he starts throwing all the air conditioner vents at him and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's toying with him a little bit because he knows, and he knows who this kid is, but it's still powerful because what you get as we again transition eventually to Jedi, and what we see in that, you know, the second round, and all right, let's go again. And that's what Framey even said in their comment, the one-handed fighting style by Vader, he's so confident because Luke doesn't have a chance.
I actually never thought about that. That's really cool.
It's really, you know, it has to be an intentional, because Luke isn't here. He's two-handing it.
Yeah.
You know, he's sweating. Obviously, we don't know if Vader's sweating. I imagine Vader's always cool because he's got fans and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he's got like liquid-cooled astronaut suits.
Right.
But again, he's one hand. He's got this under control, and he's trying to get him to the carbon chamber, or, you know, whatever he's trying to do.
Right.
So it really does carry the weight of the storytelling, but it carries the weight of the relationships too, which is, I think that's something really neat in there.
Yeah.
And you said something that I'm going to come back to with one of my bonus picks, so I'll remember that. I made a note. So number 3 for Marc Thompson lightsabers, Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
Again, how does this not end up on a list? It clearly did.
Oh yeah.
This is a big one. Tell us about this for you.
I guess similar to what I was saying about going from episode 4 to episode 5 in terms of fight choreography and complexity, like this was like exponentially more. Like that, you know, like to see like Jedi, you know, at the height and the peak of their abilities, and just you know, the speed at which this battle was fought, and just the first time you see a double-bladed lightsaber, like I remember just like the trailer, like everyone was like, "What?" You know. So the colors of it, the 2-on-1 aspect is super exciting and something we'd never seen before. And I'll just never forget, Qui-Gon getting speared, Obi-Wan, no, and then just waiting for the force field. And as soon as that force field drops, and it's like, it was like, it's so fast, and it's them doing it. It's Ray Park and Ewan McGregor doing it. And it's just that moment was just so intense. And I get goosebumps every time I see that. And it was so intense. And it's just it blew me away.
It really is. And like you said, we had varying degrees of lightsaber battles up to when we get this. We get a little tease at the beginning of this movie with Qui-Gon and Maul on Tatooine. It's short-lived.
Right.
But this is the big deal. This is the Super Bowl. This is, here we go. And I always remember, and it's once they get through those little power gates or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And they're right there where it all eventually ends up happening. But this is fast when they're in the hangar.
Oh yeah.
But it kicks it up a notch once they get through those barriers. And I love, again, we talked about this last week with Silver from Star Wars Thrifting. You get those 3 barriers, and you've got Maul on the end, and he's just pacing like a caged animal. You've got Qui-Gon in the middle, meditating, sabers off, down. And then you've got Obi-Wan back there in the back, and he's like, I'm ready to go. He's not quite as pacing as Maul is, but he's right there. Like, the difference between all of those, but all 3 of them get through that barrier, and they're fighting around that circle, which, again, OSHA violation, no rails on anything. But it kicks it up a notch, and I'll never forget. And every time I watch it, I look for it where there's a shot. And again, it's the 3 of them, but Ewan in the splittest of seconds goes behind his head to block the one shot behind his back.
That's
and
the one.
He comes right back around, and it's seamless, and it's unbelievable. It's so good.
That is the moment why I picked this one, because
every time
it's
that
how did they do that? Yeah.
So, and again, like you said, Ray Park, Ewan McGregor, Nick Gillard, like they're all, you go watch those making of videos that came out with all these movies.
Right.
And they're in there with those aluminum sticks that look like they've been beat to hell because they've practiced this for months.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. And we get more of that because you get the videos of Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver doing the same thing, practicing those fights and boxes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the speed at which this battle happens is really only rivaled by one other, and I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about it in a minute. But it's so good, and it was so revealing to any of us who had seen everything before, but we had never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. So that being said, let's jump from number 3 to number 2, which is Yoda versus Dooku in Attack of the Clones. And I had to pick 2 different clips here because, first of all, Yoda hobbles in, and he pulls that jacket back.
Yep.
And now my computer's being weird because that's not the.
Spoiler alert!
There we go. So Yoda pulls his robe back and uses the Force to call the lightsaber around his body.
Right.
Like that was the point when the theater all gasped because again, Yoda's been sandbagging everybody. He hobbles into the room.
Yep.
Doing his little deal, and then wait, here comes this other thing. Obviously, we need to hear Marc's take on all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this will be controversial for people or not, because I don't know how people feel about this moment or that movie, but for Yoda's my favorite character,
right?
And so there's that, and then there was something I guess I never anticipated being able to see Yoda in a lightsaber battle, before Clone Wars. Yeah. So it was so, and like you said, they totally fake us out because they, he comes in hobbling or whatever, and that's all we've ever known of Yoda. It's just Yoda. So I'm thinking maybe he just force pushes Dooku and knocks him out or something. But the moment where that lightsaber just and he ignites it, it was like I was at the Ziegfeld, which is basically 1,000-seat theater in New York City. So it was the largest movie theater in New York City. They're not doing it in theaters anymore. The Ziegfeld's not a movie theater anymore. But anyway, so it's so that moment in the theater on opening night was like being at a rock concert or like a playoff game. Like everyone was like, and like it was just so, the energy was just crazy. And then when he starts hopping around and doing like, I was laughing so hard with like giddy glee. Like those, like I just, I was like in such like, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And like, and it just, everybody was just going so nuts. And like, I almost put it as my number one, because just, it was just seeing that moment in the theater was just amazing. And it just, I love this battle.
I will say, I was not at the Ziegfeld in New York City. I was at a movie theater. I was at a movie theater in Auburn, Alabama with friends.
Okay.
And the reaction was the same.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
It was like if Auburn had beaten Alabama in the Iron Bowl.
Oh,
like,
that's great to hear.
Yeah. Loud, the cheer. But that was exactly it. We had no idea even to expect this kind of thing from Yoda. Like, of course, we have to assume, we know he's 900 and something years old, or at this point, 870 instead of 900, whatever it is. But like, and for all of the, and now none of them don't matter, but when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I complained about the prequels too much because I was one of those people, for the things that I complained about in the prequels, this was never one of them. Like, I loved this from the first moment I saw it.
Yeah.
And I even thought about, from the perspective of the digital effects people that created this, like, they told Christopher Lee or his stunt double, go out there, swing it around. We'll make the rest of it connect. Like, you know, you didn't have to stunt coordinate this one. You went and swing some stuff, and we'll make sure it connects in post after we're done.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And again, for me, it's the reveal. He pulls that robe back, and that saber just doop, and it's a Yoda-sized saber. Of course it is. It's not bigger. Right. It's his. We have one of them. My kids have all gotten different sabers over the years, and at some point somebody got the Yoda one. And I think it's my favorite one, because I know it's a little bit shorter, because it's made for a short guy. Yeah, it's just phenomenal. It's so much fun, and it definitely, you know, it's a bright spot in a movie that a lot of times everybody picks as their least favorite movie. So it's all good. And if you had picked it as your number one, you would have gotten no judgment here. It would have been worthy. Yeah. So that being said, let's transition to your number one, which I accidentally revealed a second ago, but isn't a surprise.
Yeah.
We've got Obi-Wan and Anakin, Revenge of the Sith. Anakin, you were my brother, the whole deal. Tell us about this for you.
I mean, so like, this one has the culmination of all the things I liked about all the other ones. Because like, you've got the intensity of lightsaber battles, you know, like this, if we're talking about kicking it up a notch, like the speed at which they're fighting, the length of this one, the stakes of this one, like they're on this planet and the whole thing's dissolving, the emotional intensity of this one, like this has everything. Like, whereas like maybe Bespin had more emotional intensity than it did physical intensity, this one is the perfect combination of everything. It's got intense emotional intensity and just unbelievable action and skill, and just, you know, and just, you know, there was so much build up to this moment. Like all the prequels, like episode 3 could have been the trilogy. Like they could have, like, you know, just taken the time period that episode 3 covers and made that the prequel trilogy, because this is what I think we were all wanting to see is, you know, so, you know, all those years of wanting this moment and then getting to witness it, and how, and it's beautiful. Like, it's also got the blue sabers against the lava of Mustafar. It's just and again, an iconic image. And then the tragedy at the end, you tear up when you see, like, you were like a brother to me, you know. And and then this is just on a personal note. This is when this did come on DVD, you know, this is the one that me and my sons would act out, and like we would play the movie in the background and then reenact. We would like lightsaber battle over the couch, and like I'd be on the couch like, I have the high ground, you know, and like, you know, like, you know, and so that was like a tradition for us, as for several years we would just act out this scene and say the lines to each other. And so this one's just important to me for a lot of reasons.
It really is so good. And I love, in like the bottom right image that we have here on the screen is the two of them, like neither one of them are hitting each other, but they're doing their thing. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, you've got a master and his direct apprentice, young, like they're an equal match for each other. And they have that moment when they're fighting on that conference table and they both go do the force push at the same time, and they're just stuck. And so it is, when it comes down to it, the shot in the top when they're fighting on the lava. And again, they're matching each other all throughout this. I did put up the other one where Anakin kicks Obi-Wan and he just does a backflip and lands on his feet, because that's what you do when you get kicked in the face.
Right.
But it really is so good. Such a commentary on, and I rewatched Attack of the Clones a month or so ago, just as we do as Star Wars fans, randomly, like, what am I putting on tonight? And when we got to this scene, and I think part of it as I get older, part is if I have conversations with Star Wars friends, guests of the show, the found family, you are my brother, like that line hit me harder than it had in previous times I watched it, because one, I love Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. So the emotion in it is so good and so real. Can't tell you how I'm excited for the Obi-Wan series. Like,
me too. That's
the thing a fan of my age is most ready. Like, Mandalorian's fun. I love it. I want the Obi-Wan series. Tell me what we get. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much in this about two equals. And when it comes down to it, it's the end. It's the high ground. It's the angry guy who's so mad he can't see past his own anger and rage to realize he's lost. And that's what his downfall is. And that's a picture of Vader. And that's a picture of his blindness to what Palpatine tricked him into. And it just, there's so much packed into what could just be a laser sword fight.
Yeah.
And, again, similar thing, back the behind the scenes stuff of this, and Hayden and Ewan, like, just swinging those swords, doing their thing. Like, it's amazing. It really is so fun.
Yeah.
Your list is phenomenal. Like, these are choice. I don't know how
you. I was nervous.
No, you did a fantastic job. There's no nerves at all.
Right.
And I did add bonus selections, not because your list is unworthy, but because there's so many great choices.
Yeah.
And two of my favorites happen to not land on your list. So if you will indulge me,
sure.
We're gonna do two of these real quick. The first one is Obi-Wan and Maul on Rebels.
I was very tempted. I almost put it on the list. Yeah.
And this whole episode is so great. Maul is driven purely by rage for Kenobi, and it stems from Phantom Menace. I love that that's Maul's arc. I love that everything that drives him. We get it in Clone Wars Season 7. When Ahsoka shows up, he says to her, I was expecting Kenobi. Like, he does his deal.
Yeah.
And, who are you? That's his thing. All he wants is this. He wants to be able to get revenge for being cut in half and having to have robot spider, then robot legs. Like, that drives him. And what I love about this, and this is not my original thought. I don't know who originally I read it on Twitter. Somebody talked about it. Obi-Wan at this age and stage, and what we see going forward in his fight with Vader in New Hope, this is a fight of efficiency.
Yes.
Obi-Wan doesn't have to, like, this is 3 hits and it's over.
Yep. You have the whole battle
intentional.
Right here.
We've got the entire battle in this one GIF.
Yeah.
But that's Obi-Wan. And
totally.
It's a conscious decision. And one of the things I love so deep in the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi is that the time he meditated, the time he communed with Qui-Gon, the time he learned the things he needed to know before he gets to Luke on the Death Star and makes that sacrifice to Vader.
Yeah.
This was an intentional choice. It didn't have to be long and drawn out. I'll do these 2 things and then it's over.
Yeah.
And then what I don't have in the clip is he catches Maul. Like, there's still compassion there.
Yeah.
He catches him. And Maul asks him, is this one? Is this the chosen one? And he says it is.
Yeah.
Everything about this. It's so good. And it's 3 seconds of animation that to me is prime Star Wars.
You're right. Yeah.
It honors both of the characters, because right before Maul makes his attack, he unveils both of those blades. He does the big, twisty, look at me. And then Obi-Wan, it's kind of like Indy shooting the sword guy in Raiders.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done here. What else? Where are we going from here?
Yeah.
Obi-Wan essentially with his sword is saying, we don't have time for this. So I love that one. So that's one of my choices. The second choice that I had as my bonus selection was, no surprise. Actually, that's supposed to say Obi-Wan versus Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I mistyped that. So forgive me, viewers. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka in season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Again, the fight is so good.
Oh, totally.
We have talked, and every week that a new episode of Bad Batch comes out, one of the big things we hear about is how good the animation is. The visual effects, the way that these shots look, that is phenomenal. And then the icing on the cake for this scene is the fact that they got Ray Park and they got Lauren Mary Kim in mocap suits to do these fights, to come in there and do the scenes for real and then animate it. So this isn't strictly drawn. Like, this is real fighting, real scenes. And there's a scene with Ahsoka early on in this fight where she's in that similar Ray mode where she drops the saber and catches it on the other side in order to get an advantage on Maul.
Yeah, totally.
I love everything about this. And I will say, and Framey hits it exactly as I'm about to have the words come out of my mouth. They say you can totally tell that Ray Park was motion captioned for Maul. It's unmistakable. If you follow Ray Park on Instagram, he does tons of like workout videos where he'll do, you know, his various martial arts. He'll do saber stuff. And there's a very specific, the jump double hit thing that he does is how he opens this battle. And when you see it animated, you're like, I've seen that on Instagram 100 times with the real guy.
Totally.
And it's so cool to me that they were able to go, how can we make this even cooler? Let's get real people to do the fight and then animate it.
Yeah.
And that coupled with Ralph McQuarrie era lightsabers, skinny, long, like everything about that is my Star Wars love language. So there's no way this couldn't be my other bonus selection.
Yeah, both of those I wrestled with wanting them, both of those on there. So
and that's understandable, no doubt. No judgment, like I said. But these have been, your list is amazing and your stories are amazing. And the fact that you were willing to come on and hang out with us tonight and talk about your career, which of course so many people adore. Audiobooks, like I said, audiobooks have such a huge audience right now. Audiobook audience, that feels weird to say, but but like that's a big part of reading because people travel and commute, people work at jobs where they can listen to something. And it allows us to consume more Star Wars as we go along. And so I really think it's such a neat part of this fandom that you get to have such an impacting role on. And so definitely thank you for that. It's like, I'm thanking you for the job that you do and you get paid for it. So it's, you know, maybe a little bit weird, but it really is cool. But I think what's cool about it is your love for this fandom is apparent in the work that you do.
Oh,
and
that
you
means a
know,
lot
if
to
it
me.
was just a job, it'd be one thing, but you love Star Wars. And so that makes it that much better. Like you're excited to do it. And that comes through in the work that you do. So as a Star Wars fan, we all thank you for that.
Oh, wow.
As we get ready to wrap up, do you have anything? Obviously, there's more books coming. We hope that you're going to get to work on them. We're not going to ask you to reveal anything you can't reveal. But is there anything you want to plug? Is there anywhere that people can connect with you? I will say, and I've got, where's my banners? Marc, you are on Twitter as Captain Ehud. You're also Captain Ehud on Instagram.
Yep.
We want everybody to check that out. If y'all don't follow Marc's YouTube channel, Marc does great trailer reaction videos a lot of times with his family.
Yeah.
And so we do have phase 5 of Marvel that we're coming into.
Yeah.
We're all desperately awaiting a Spider-Man trailer, but y'all do some great trailer videos. And I want everybody to check that out. But what else? Is there anything else that you'd like to plug?
No, you hit them all. And then I think the thing I'm allowed to talk about, there's a few things coming up that I'm not allowed to talk about, but the one that they have announced is that they're doing a original High Republic audio drama. And this one is a multicast. So it's several different actors and actresses doing an original piece about Lorna D, who's one of the Tempest runners. And I think it's called, the audio drama is called Tempest Runner. But that should be coming out end of this month. And it's really cool. There's some great actors in that. And it's a really cool story. You get a lot of background information on her. So it's really cool.
That's outstanding. Well, I can't wait to, get caught up on High Republic. And I'm going to do it with my friend Marc. I'm going to listen to all these other audiobooks. That'll be a great way to go. And eventually get to that one as well. To play a little catch up.
Yeah, no rush.
But truly, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. This has been a big pleasure for me. I know that our listeners and viewers have enjoyed it tonight. Our audio listeners, we hope that y'all will enjoy it as well, and that you'll go follow Marc if you aren't already. As far as Podcast of the Wills, we are on most of your social media things. We are at Wills Pod. That is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'll tell you right now, and I've said this on previous shows, I'm too old for TikTok, but we have a TikTok, and we're putting out some promo videos, just hoping to draw more folks to the show because we want people to enjoy the fun, positive show that we get to do and these amazing guests that we get to hang out with. So if you're not following us on any of those, check it out. Audio listeners, if you ever want to catch the video versions of this, we are youtube.com/podcast of the Wills. Check it out. I put my poor Photoshop skills on screen, as well as GIFs, videos, anything to kind of help take the attention off of my weird looking face and all of our handsome guests. So check out the show on YouTube. Check it out on the Podcast Rewind. Thank everybody so much for hanging out in the live chat tonight. Y'all are always so much fun and add so much to the conversation. And we will be together again next week for another great episode. So until then, may the Force be with you always.